Let's go straight out to the West Coast, where Jessica Vascellaro is standing by to tell us all about this. Not just me scratching my head, a lot of other people too, marketing experts especially.
Indeed. I mean, everyone sort of predicted it would be the iPad 3. We had the iPad 2. And Apple surprised us by just naming it the iPad. And moreover, it's going to keep the iPad 2 on the market. So this has marketing experts saying, okay, how are consumers going to know what they're buying?
So it's a great question. How are they going to know what they're buying? Presumably by the price.
Right. I mean, I kind of, consumers aren't stupid. I mean, I don't know. I think they'll know what they're buying.
Some aren't.
Right.
And, one thing, so obviously, what Apple announced yesterday is the new iPad has much faster screen, 4G networking. I mean, consumers go into a store knowing that they want the latest and greatest. This is a purchase they think about a lot. It starts at $499, and it's really expensive. But, yesterday's move also, I think it was confusing to people, and it was also a little surprising, and is raising some questions about, does Apple have other plans for this product line? A lot of people are looking back at other Apple product lines. Some, like the iPhone, have numbers, have gone up sequentially. Some, like the Mac, don't. Obviously, it's Apple, so everyone's, the rumors sort of fly and the speculation, but it was an interesting move to actually switch this into a category that doesn't have a number from one that does. So that's generating some buzz as well.
Right. I think that was kind of what I got out of your story, was not so much that, I can't tell if this is a misstep, which I know some people were saying that it might be. I mean, I thought it was really more interesting in terms of speculation of what Apple might be doing and why they would have done this. I mean, it's tough to really say that Apple is making a misstep, I feel, because they don't, if you're going to complain, if you're going to kind of rank the companies that are good at marketing, I would say that Apple is pretty high
it is
up there. So
that's a good point. She raises, Jessica. But in your story, there is a marketing expert who says the quote new iPad end quote is already a $10 billion mistake. Black eye on the Tim Cook era, and it's an hour old. $10 billion.
Yeah, I mean,
that's a big
there
claim.
Are people who have those views, and we'll just have to see. It's important to remember too. I mean, Apple's been criticized for naming in the past. I mean, when the iPad came out, there were headlines in newspapers talking about it invoking feminine hygiene products and just being a bad name. Obviously, it's gone on to sort of dominate this early tablet industry. So. I think people probably give Apple a little benefit of the doubt, but it's interesting. I mean, it was clearly not what we expected. Some people are comparing it to Apple launching the iPhone 4S instead of the iPhone 5 last year. I think that's a little bit of a different example because there has been a precedent of Apple sort of adding an S. They had the Apple 3 or the iPhone 3G, which became the 3GS. So it's a little bit different, but people pay close attention to these names, and this was definitely had a lot of people scratching their head.
They've also had the MacBook, right? And the MacBook has gone through a number of iterations without a naming change. So
exactly. The iPod, there's no iPod 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but there's a Nano and a Mini. So that's another example.
So maybe that's the direction they're going in. Is that maybe what they're trying to signal? And if so, why couldn't they just come out and say that to you?
It's a good question. I mean, Apple likes to keep us on their toes, of course. I mean, it's part of what builds the sort of mystique around the company that creates the desire for their products. Yesterday, Phil Schiller, who's the senior vice president of marketing for the company, said they did it because they didn't want to be predictable. Sort of a clever line. I'm sure they have more on that front.
Well, they could, they could stick their fingers in their eyes, and that would be pretty unpredictable too. So,
they could. I mean, it's a good question. We reported that they have sort of been talking to suppliers to test a tablet that would have a smaller screen. We don't know if that's something that they've decided to put into mass production, but definitely have reached that test level. Obviously, there are a lot of tablets on the market that have smaller screens at lower price points. So, I think this picture will come together in sort of the months or the years ahead, but maybe this is a clue.
Maybe it is a clue. Very, very interesting. And that isn't the only naming problem that iPad and Apple have. I'm going to get back to the legal wrangle a little bit later. But thank you very much for the time being. Jessica Vascellaro of the Wall Street Journal in San Francisco.